Today, we're going to dive into a guide for parents that asks a really tough question. Is the world we live in right now actually set up for our daughters to thrive? The source material we're looking at makes the case that a perfect storm of digital pressure and social changes has created some pretty huge, unprecedented challenges. And its proposed solution? Well, it's one that might just surprise you. So let's unpack the argument.
Everything we're about to talk about really hinges on this one single idea. The idea that the world a young girl is navigating today is, well, it's fundamentally, almost unrecognizably different from the one just a generation ago. And this image, it really captures that feeling, doesn't it? It's not just about being connected, it's about being constantly watched, constantly judged. This is the near reality the source asks us to start from.
So before we can even get to the proposed solution, the guide insists that we first have to map out this new social minefield. It breaks the whole landscape down into a few key areas that it sees as being the most, let's say, treacherous. So what exactly are these big shifts that are shaping our daughters' lives? Okay, so the source points to what it calls three forces that are all hitting at once. First, there's this total digital immersion, which means a kid's identity is often shaped from the outside in. Second, at the exact same time, our real-world face-to-face communities are breaking down. And third, we've got this supercharged social culture where one wrong move can go viral. The key takeaway here is that these aren't separate issues. They feed each other, making the whole situation way more intense. And this slide, wow, this really grounds that idea of social erosion with a pretty shocking number. The source argues that a 50% drop in just free, unstructured playtime isn't just about kids getting less exercise. No, it's about a massive loss in learning basic human skills. You know, how to negotiate, how to compromise, how to read a room, how to solve a conflict without a screen. These are the skills that build a resilient person, and the guide's argument is that they're disappearing. All right, now the guide really zooms in on that first major shift, what it calls the digital danger zone, and it uses some pretty powerful numbers to show us the sheer scale of the pressures kids are facing online. Let's start with this number, 7+ hours. According to the source, that's the average daily screen time for a teenager. Just let that sink in for a minute. That's not screen time for homework. That's the daily average. That's more time than many of them spend sleeping, and it's almost definitely more time than they spend talking face-to-face with their family. It has become their primary environment. And inside that 7+ hour digital world, what's the reality? Well, it's this. 60% of teenagers report that they've been cyberbullied or harassed online. So you've got this huge amount of time being spent in a space where, for the majority, a negative, harmful interaction isn't just a possibility, it's probable. The scale of that is just something we've never seen before. This image really gets to the heart of the problem, doesn't it? You know, unlike a bully you could at least get away from at the end of the school day, digital harassment follows you home. It's in your pocket. The source argues that the one place that is supposed to be a sanctuary, a child's own room, can become a constant 24/7 battlefield. There's just no escape. And this is a really crucial point the guide makes. This environment, it's not like this by accident. It argues that these platforms are literally engineered to get a reaction out of us, to maximize our engagement. From this point of view, the top priority isn't keeping kids safe, it's keeping their eyeballs glued to the screen. So, after laying out the whole digital world, the source then turns its attention to the physical world most kids are in every single day, school. And the argument here is that the conventional school path itself has its own set of social risks that we often just don't talk about enough. The guide uses this really intense phrase. It calls the social world of a modern school a gauntlet. It describes this progression, right? It starts with the familiar stuff like bullying and cliques, but then it escalates to this intense peer pressure, normalizing some pretty risky behaviors. And finally, it all culminates in this overwhelming wave of influencer culture, which the source claims completely twists a young girl's sense of who she is and what's important. Let's dig into that last point for a sec, because it's so central to the guide's entire argument. The critique of influencer culture is really specific. First, it pushes this impossible standard of curated perfection, making real life feel like it's not good enough. Second, it ties self-worth directly to materialism, to having the right stuff. And third, it swaps out internal values, like kindness and character, for external ones, like how many likes and followers you have. It's a culture that's all about appearance over substance. So after laying out all of these challenges, from the digital world to the school hallways, the guide kind of brings it all home with this one central question. And this right here, this is the turning point of the entire text. This is a moment where it shifts from just diagnosing the problem to proposing a very direct and for a lot of people, a pretty radical solution. And this is that solution. The guide puts homeschooling on the table, but not just as a way to learn reading and writing. It presents it as a sanctuary, a conscious choice to create a totally different social environment, one that's specifically designed to protect against all the pressures we've just been talking about.
This chart really puts the whole argument in black and white. On one side, you have the challenges of the conventional path. On the other, the proposed benefits of the alternative. The case it's making is for a kind of trade-off, swapping out things like relational aggression and peer pressure for a protected environment and stronger family bonds, trading that chase for curated perfection for a chance to build real, genuine self-worth from the inside out.
Now, to back up its case, the guide then pivots to academics. The claim here is that homeschooling isn't just a socially protective choice, but it can be an academically superior one, too. It presents this statistic, an average of 15 to 30 percentile points higher on standardized tests, as direct proof that this kind of personalized learning really works. So, we've seen the diagnosis of the problem, we've seen the proposed solution. This last section is all about bolstering that argument with some real-world examples, framing this choice not as one of fear, but as one of empowerment. The guide then rolls out several success stories to make the whole idea more concrete. It talks about an AI pioneer, a young author with 3 novels published by 17, and champions in global science and math competitions, all of whom were homeschooled. The unspoken argument here is that removing kids from that daily social gauntlet doesn't hold them back. In fact, it might actually create the focus and freedom they need to do incredible things. Now, this is a really important clarification. The source wants to be very clear about its philosophy. This isn't about being reactive, it's about being proactive. The goal presented here isn't to hide your daughter away from the world forever, but to give her the time and the space to build such a strong foundation of character that when she does engage with that world, she can do it from a position of strength and wisdom. And so this is where the guide leaves us. It doesn't claim to have the one single right answer for every single family. Instead, after making its case, it turns the question back on us. It's a prompt, really, to think critically, not just about schools, but about the entire environment we create for our kids. In a world that's always going to be complicated, the ultimate question is, what kind of foundation are we giving them to not just get by, but to truly, fully flourish?